9.2, we are going to start multiplying and factoring polynomials. So your goals for today is to multiply a polynomial with a monomial. Remember, monomial is one term, and we're going to take that one term and we're going to multiply into a polynomial. So it's like distributing. And so then after we learn how to do that, what we're going to do is we are going to do the opposite of multiplying, which is factoring, breaking it down. So see, when we multiply a monomial into polynomials, we can always factor or take out or divide out a monomial from a polynomial. So we are going to multiply and we are going to factor today. So in example number 1, we are going to simplify. So simplify means we're going to multiply. So in an example number 1, I have a monomial which is quadratic, so negative 2x squared, so that's a quadratic monomial. And we're going to multiply by a cubic polynomial. So cubic means degree is 3, so 3x cubed plus 6x minus 5. So we're going to multiply a monomial into a polynomial. So when we do that, we are going to distribute. So distributing means to multiply this monomial into each term. So we're going to multiply negative 2 times 3 is negative 6, and x squared times x cubed, remember when it's the same basis you add exponents, so it becomes x to the 5th. And then negative 2 times 6 would be negative 12. So minus 12, and x squared times x, remember if there's no exponent it's 1, so 2 plus 1 is 3, so it would be x to the 3rd. And then negative 2 times negative 5, so it makes it a plus 10, and then you put the x squared. And that's how you multiply a monomial with a polynomial, by distributing it in. And that is our goal number 1. Now in goal number 2, we're going to factor out a monomial, so we're going to be taking it out of this polynomial, so factor. So we're going to do the opposite, but before we could factor out, what we need to do is find the greatest common factor, because our greatest common factor is our monomial. So in example number 2, it says find the greatest common factor of the terms of, and we got 2x to the 4th plus 10x squared minus 6x. So I want to know what is the biggest number that could go into 2, 10, and 6, and as well as what is the biggest number of x's that could go into all of them. So what I like to do is break these down. So 2x to the 4th, and then I got plus 10x squared minus 6x. I'm going to break those down. So 2 times x times x times x times x, which is 2x to the 4th. And then I got 10 is 2 times 5, which is 10 times x, which is x squared. And 6x turns out to be 2 times 3 times x. So my greatest common factor is what they all have in common. So if you notice, they all have a 2 in common, so 2 is my greatest common factor. So 2 is the biggest number that could go into 2, 10, and 6. So that's my greatest common factor. And they also have an x in common, 1x. So it'll be just x to the 1st power, or x. So 2 is my greatest common factor. And if you see variables, x to the 4th, x squared, and x, it's always the lowest exponent. And if there is no x, then x would not be a greatest common factor. So once we figure out our greatest common factor, this is the monomial that we're looking for. So our goal number 2 was to factor out a monomial, which is our greatest common factor, from the polynomials. And that's how you're going to be doing in example number 3. We're going to factor. So in example number 3, we are going to factor 4x to the 3rd minus 8x squared plus 12x. So we're going to do the same thing again like in example number 2. We're going to break it all down. And I got 4x cubed minus 8x squared plus 12x. 4x cubed breaks down to 2 times 2 times x times x times x. So 2 times 2 is 4, x times x is x cubed. this one, 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8 times x, which is x squared. And then 12 breaks down to 2 times 2, which is 4 times 3, which makes it 12 times x. So the monomial, which is the greatest common factor, if you notice, all three of them has two 2's in common. So 2 times 2 is 4, so that's my greatest common factor. And they also have an x in common, so 4x. So like what we did before when we were multiplying monomial with polynomial, so monomial with polynomial, this is our greatest common factor. So we're going to take our greatest common factor and put it on the outside, and we're going to see what was remaining. Well, the reason why I break it down like this is because this also tells you what's remaining. So in the first term, we got x squared, x times x squared is remaining, minus 2x, and then plus 3. So this is factoring out a monomial from a polynomial, and so this is a factor of 4x cubed minus ax squared plus 12x. So that is how we factor. So now I want you to get used to not relying on this. So remember, in distributive property, we multiplied it in. So in factoring, we divide it out. So we're going to take this 4x, 4x, and 4x, and we're going to divide each of those, and then what you divide out goes in the outside, which is the greatest common factor. And then when you divide, 4 divided by 4 cancels out. X cubed divided by x, remember this is 1, and when you divide you subtract, so I got x cubed. Negative 8 divided by 4 is negative 2. X squared divided by x, 2 minus 1 is 1, so x. And then x's cancels out here, which is, and then no more x, and then 12 divided by 4 is 3. And you could do it that way, or eventually you're going to want to end up doing it that way. Okay, and this is lesson 9.2.